Ray, again, for like the 15th time. I'm gonna have to have a chat with him, see what he's doing. Like there he goes again. I'm gonna have to see what he's doing. Ray! Ray!
There you are!
What are you up to?
It's testing times. I'm taking the bike on the circuits for the tests.
I know it's testing times, but this is like a new one again.
This is another one. This is the direct drive.
Right.
And it's heavy, and I've got my test equipment on there so I can see what's going on. Got a nice battery, got the controller in here, and my old, well, it's the old track bike.
So when you say testing, you're testing what, like more than one bike?
3 bikes.
Yeah.
The Mule, which we know about.
We do.
This one, which is a direct drive, and I've not played with one of these before, and a front wheel drive, because some people say about the front wheel drive they're a bit skitty and not very good, but I can tell you the one that I've got, which I'll be riding in a moment, is very good, and you couldn't tell the difference.
Right, so a look at 3 home-built e-mountain bikes then for under how much?
Under £500.
Under £500.
And all different.
Right, and no doubt all had some work by Ray on them, right?
They are Ray's specials, I have to say, at the moment.
It's a well-known fact that bicycles or mountain bikes or e-bikes can be super expensive. If you wanted to, you could spend up to £15,000 on 2 wheels. Bikes such as the Specialized Lever, which is a technical off-road bike, or maybe the Trek Domani or the Madone E-Tap, which is made for super smooth riding. But you don't need such specialist equipment all the time. Now, it seems that Ray has left his fleet here. Ray, you don't need to spend 5 figures on a bike to get out in the countryside, do you?
You certainly don't, unless you're one of the cognoscenti, in which case you might want something special. But to get going and see how you are on the bike and whether you like it, and it's going to give you that cardiac and that experience and get you out, just something simple, under 500 quid you can get going by scratching around. I know it's, you know, it's not much money, but you can try it for size. And these bikes, well, okay, they are bits and pieces that I put together. I'm an engineer, it's easy for me. But I've got a motorcycle and I'm moving up now to the electric bikes. I really do like them. I find it's really good because it gets me out, it gives me that cardiac, it gives me that action, and I can smell the grass when I go out, and it's really, really good. Now, we've got 3 bikes here. Simply, we have the bike with the direct motor at the back, and a lot of people have said that that one is hard to push along, but really it's not. It's virtually the same push or drag of any other bike. It's not perceptible, it's the tyres that make the difference. Then we have this one here, which is a front wheel drive. Now, a lot of people have said about the front wheel drive that they're a bit skittish and they're not very good. Well, I can tell you that basically the ride is the same. You wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah, because what we're looking at 3 bikes here which are made for such things as small country roads or fire tracks or smooth single track. They'll get you outside, right? This
is cross-country stuff. Now, none of these will kill a big hill. And you'll be able to zip up them. It'll be hard work, you'll get up the hill. But one thing for me is that when I'm on the electric bike, I don't get frightened about the hill. I can go up the hill. That opens a whole new horizon for a lot of people, even youngsters, because, you know, you can really move about. So we got the front wheel drive.
You meant that, right?
We got the front wheel drive.
Youngsters like myself, right?
Well, like yourself, you're a youngster, you're hardly out of the egg.
And the 3rd bike, Ray, is, which looks like me, which was the Mule at one point. You still call it the Mule?
Yeah, this is still the Mule. And I've got to say, it is absolutely fabulous. It gives you such a good ride. It's nothing special. It's a really cheap bit of kit. This motor costs £79. Put a cassette on it, and you got the treble clanger on the front, a 9 or 11 amp-hour battery, and it's got disc brakes which are okay. But what a lovely ride. It's smooth as silk, and the one good thing is it's got a servo controller on it, not a square wave one, which makes for a smooth ride. It goes along the road on the flat and it takes 14 or 15 watts. It's responsive. You can pull up that PAS and you can get up to 25 kilometers an hour in no time at all. It will work well in the country, and it will work very, very well in the road as an urban bike.
Now, before Ray gets into the super technical detail here of each of these bikes, I think maybe the best thing, Ray, is to go through the prices, first of all, of each of these three bikes. And I can start off actually, because I did actually buy you this bike on eBay. It's a Trek single track from, I think, 1992 vintage. It's got V-brakes on it, it's 26-inch wheels on there, it's a steel frame, and like I said, it was £75 on eBay. Now, I'll go on to the motor, which is fitted in a minute. Now, this is Ray's Carrera, second one, which is a Carrera Subway by the looks of it. I've got no idea how much Ray paid for this. Hopefully no more than £25, right?
100 quid, I think.
100 quid. So there, and as Ray mentioned, that's got a front hub drive on there. And then the mule. Now, we have to be honest. Now, we actually bought this bike as an e-mounted bike for £350. It was possibly one of the worst bikes I've ever ridden in my life. We did take it up one of Britain's highest mountains, Snowdon in North Wales, but Ray has totally transformed this bike. Now, before we get into the technical detail, the pros and cons of each of these motors, I'm quickly going to run through each of the motor types, because they're all available online for around about £350 to £500 as kits. Now remember, you've got to fit these yourself, so if you're not an electronics expert or you've not got a mate that can do it, then maybe you should be looking at an off-the-shelf e-mountain bike. But beginning with this rear hub drive here, it's 250 watts restricted, although you can up that to 1000 watts, so that's a pretty potent motor on that bike. 600 watt hour battery. Now the hub drive is a relatively inexpensive option. That's 250 watts, and it's got a Ray, I think that's a 350 watt hour battery on there.
It is indeed. Yeah.
And finally, it is the mule. Ray, talk us through the hub drive on this bike.
Well, this is just an MUX-S hub drive. It's got a cassette on it, 7-speed, and it's pretty standard, and you can get them for 79 quid. 79 quid? Absolutely.
Ray, I actually want to ask you very quickly, now, on EMBN, we do ride mid-drive bikes quite a lot. Now, mid-drive bikes are slightly superior when it comes to steep hills, correct?
They are indeed, yeah. Because you've got the gearing and you share the same gear. So you've got an electric motor, which uses a gearbox, if you like, to give you that extra range and power. Electric motors, for most industrial purposes, don't have gearboxes. They actually manage their gearing electronically. And that is where there's a slight problem with the system that we see on mid-motored bikes today.
So if we're talking about the cons about all three bikes, it would be that when you get to super steep hills, they're not quite as punchy as the mid-drive bikes, right?
Absolutely right. The mid-drive wins there.
Right. But nevertheless, mid-drives can be, you know, £3,000–4,000 more.
They're a lot more expensive, and there's a lot more to go wrong with them. And the engineering is just a little bit Neanderthal for mechatronic engineers, because we can see that there can be improvements which the manufacturers haven't got to.
Right.
And they might be able to.
Remember guys, these are Ray's words, not mine. Ray, let's begin with some of the pros and cons of the Trek single track bike. Okay Ray, let's begin with the Trek single track 930, and I have to say this was a state-of-the-art mountain bike in 1992. But we've got this rear hub drive on here. Now it says 250 watts max, but you do have the option to up that to 1000 watts as well, right?
That's right. It can go with 1000 watts, but you need to get a waiver through the manufacturer to say, yep, you'll be using it off-road, and be aware of that, because they don't want the liability of being known of supplying stuff that's not right.
So let's talk to the pros and cons then of this bike.
Pretty powerful, especially if you go for the up mode. Very reliable type of system, because it's so simple, there's no gearing in there. Heavy, unfortunately, needs a big battery. kicks in at 200 watts at about 5 or 6 kilometers an hour. It's got the walk mode, which is useful.
That's handy.
But it does take a lot of power.
Yeah.
And a lot of people find that it really does suck the battery. And some people are saying 15 miles is as much as they can get out of it.
Right.
Maybe they're being a bit lazy.
Yeah.
But I would say this battery is pretty large, it's pretty heavy, and you need it. If you're going to go from the 16 down to the 11, or less than that, you are going to get off and walk.
Okay, right.
A lot of people also say that this type of motor has got a lot of drag.
Yeah.
It hasn't got any more drag, really. I put it on the rolling road, and the drag is insignificant because it's more to do with the tyres, the way the tyres work.
Right.
That's where you get your losses than in the motor, so don't get too worried about that.
How many modes has it got? Three, four?
It's got 5 modes.
Wow, right.
And they are okay, but it has a bit of a problem. In technical terms, it's called a brownout.
A brownout?
A brownout.
I think that is the first on EMBN.
I'm sorry, lads, but a brownout.
And ladies.
This is what the engineers will call it. And what that means is that you lose power temporarily and then it comes back up again. It's as if, you know, the horse hasn't been fed for a week and is saying, ah, come on. So this you get when you're cycling along and you come to a hill and you're pedalling like mad and the motor's doing its stuff.
Yeah.
It will decide it's had enough and it drops you out. You now come to a rolling stop, and just before you get to a stop, you get a bit of a burp.
Right.
It's not comfortable. So brownouts, you can get them with this sort of bike.
Right. But as a bike for general fire road riding, I think it's a great one. Now, what I do want to point out actually is that I think if you are transforming your mountain bike to an e-mountain bike, there are the component features to bear in mind. Now, this bike has V-brakes and some quite narrow tyres, plus a quick release system on the front wheel there. Now, I would actually say that V-brakes aren't actually powerful enough for a bike which has got added weight to it, and I think a chunkier sort of downhill style tyre might be better if you're going to be taking this off-road. But nevertheless, for around £500, Ray, that's still a great tool to take you out in the countryside. Right, we're now moving on to the front hub-wheel drive bike. This is a do-it-yourself kit by Trustee in the UK. Ray, I'm going to point something out actually, is that this bike is actually quite lightweight compared to the track bike, and I think this is something people need to bear in mind, because if you're going to be transporting these bikes around, like, you know, you carry yours in your camper van, definitely easier to pick this one up than that one over there.
Absolutely, and it's good for hills as well.
Yeah.
Although, you know, not very steep hills, but it's a good bike. It's light, it's easy to use.
A really nice touch on the battery. It comes with that rack on the back as well, doesn't it?
It does indeed, and it's excellent. This slips in, it locks up, so you can take it off when you don't want it. Another good point is that in there is an almost waterproof, if you say certainly weatherproof, box for the controller. So everything that is the technical bit is here or down the front. And a lot of people will say that the front might be a bit skittish, but it's not. Ray,
do you know what? I think this is a very sleek system. It's very simple, and this display here seems pretty effective.
Yeah, that's good. That's an 890. It's pretty good. It's got 3 levels of power, but the interesting thing is it's got a little speedometer with little LEDs that come up to tell you what your speed is, so you don't need one of these things with the sticky on there.
That's a nice touch, isn't it? Anything else to say?
Yeah, this is really good because you can put your pannier bags on here and it hides the battery, and you can put stuff in. What could be better for the shopping?
Absolutely. So range-wise, we've got a 350 watt-hour battery roughly on this bike.
That's right.
It's a lower powered system, so it's not taking quite as much out of the battery. So I'm guessing a higher range?
It's pretty good. I haven't had any problems with it. If you're going to do 40 kilometres cross-country, no problem at all.
Are there any negatives about this bike? I mean, this is definitely way under £500 to
It is
put
indeed,
together.
yeah. Square wave drive is a little noisy, but that's really the only problem with it, and I don't think that would interfere really with your enjoyment.
Yeah. So there you go, number 2 of our home build bikes. There she is, Ray. Always makes me shudder when I see this bike. However, it is a vastly improved bike to when I rode it first several years ago. Now, before we go into it, can I just point out that we need to know here that there's a fundamental difference here between what are both essentially 2 rear hub drive bikes.
Absolutely.
And what is the difference between these hub drives?
This unit is a direct drive. There's no gears in it at all. It's really just a linear motor. Nothing really to go wrong with it. It's pretty simple. It's sort of Stone Age technology, but it carries on and it's really good. This unit is smaller, it's lighter, and it's got gears in it, and the motor is different and it's smaller. It's pretty good for hills in that it's got a bit more go in it than this unit, but that unit is better for cruising than this one.
Right.
So you take a choice.
But this is $79.99.
It's very cheap and it's quite reliable. About the only thing you really need to do with it is to have a look at the nylon gears after about 5,000 miles, and you might need to change them. And I think some suppliers are actually making metal gears that you can use.
So what about the, when it comes down to the performance, the acceleration and it's the power out of these 2 motors, how does that fit?
This is the better one, I think, in my opinion. It's quite nippy, the acceleration is good, the top speed is good, and it's really quite quiet because it's got a sine wave drive. So it's got everything going for it. The bike itself has got a small frame, so that's quite good. And the battery doesn't need to be that big. The controller is down there. The only one thing I did find that if you're not careful, that the PAS unit will get muck on it.
Yeah, that's the pedal assist.
The pedal assist, so you need to put some sort of guard on that.
Yeah.
And indeed, I put a guard on there to stop that.
Yeah.
This bike is a comfort to ride. It's light.
Now, as we mentioned, having a lightweight bike is super important if you're going to be transporting that to different destinations, either locally or internationally. Ray, talk us through the modes on this bike. Are they any good or not?
Absolutely. It's got 3 modes, well, in fact 4 if you just use it without any assistance. And it gives you the battery level as well. And it also gives you a walk by. If you want to walk along at, say, 5 or 6 kilometres, you can do that on this unit. So it's a really good bit of kit. And of all the bikes, I think this is the one I'd go for.
Ray, what's involved in building one of these kits? How much technical experience do you need to have?
You need to be a pretty good do-it-yourselfer, or you need to have a mate that knows something about it and spend a bit of time. Yeah. It's not that easy, and if you get stuck, I'm afraid it's down to the bike shop, and they may have a problem as well. Yeah,
because I mean, you know, it does take, even the bike shop might not have the experience, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's okay for me because I supposedly know what I'm doing.
Supposedly?
Supposedly, yeah.
Supposedly.
Well, I've got so far on this and I'm really enjoying it because it's good stuff.
So, but if someone was to take it on, what sort of time does it take to build a bike up like this?
You want to allow a good day for it and maybe to revisit it the next day if you get a bit of a problem. But once you've got it going, it's great fun. So it is worth the trip.
Ray, 3 fantastic examples of how to convert a mountain bike into a proper e-mountain bike to go off-roading or for commuting. It's a very simple process. You get your mountain bike, which could cost you maybe £100 on eBay, or actually any kind of mountain bike for that matter. And then you can either choose the option of buying a motor, which are around about £100. The battery is actually the most expensive part. They range between £150 to £350, or indeed you get a kit. So there you go, 3 examples, 2 geared drive bikes and 1 direct drive bike. Ray, what on earth are you going to do next?
It's quite simple. I got it all lined up, and we did mention it in a video a little while ago. I am going to put
here we go.
This baby here, on the mule.
What, an all-wheel drive
It's going to be all-wheel. It's going to have 2 small batteries. and a little bit of controlling work from me, but nothing too difficult. And this is going to give me what happened in 1947 when the Land Rover came out. All-wheel drive. And it's really going to make a difference. And I can't wait to do it. I should be doing it shortly. It's winter time, so that's the time to do it. And it's going to have the advantage of just roll along with one motor, with one battery. And after, let's say, half an hour or an hour, if a stiff hill comes up, just put both wheel drive in and up you go, just like that. Extra power just for that off-road experience, be really good. And then at the end of the run, if you're running out of power on one battery, just switch to the other and start anew. I can't wait to get going. Let me do a film on this, Steve, later on. It'll be really good.
Right, 100%. So there you go, folks. Let us know what you think of Ray's builds, and get involved in the comments down below, and me or Ray would be happy to get involved.